I'm pleased to welcome and introduce our keynote speaker, Sunny Hostin, a member of the class of 1990 and a legal analyst for CNN. You may remember that she was featured in our university magazine within the past year. As a student at Binghamton, Sunny studied communication. After graduating, she went to law school at Notre Dame and later became a federal prosecutor. For her work in putting away sex predators, Hostin received an award from former U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno. That's great. This is like Law and Order, SVU, right? Her career started to change course after she spoke at a conference in 2006, where a producer for Court TV, which is now known as True TV, offered her an on-air gig. She subsequently became a regular on Bill O'Reilly's show on the Fox News channel, which eventually led to her current work at CNN. At this time, I'd love to ask Sunny Hostin to join me on the podium.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction and just for being here, for the invitation. I will tell you, I'm embarrassed to say, this is my first time back at Binghamton. I know. In almost 24 years. And I can even tell you, my best friend who I met here at Binghamton, Kathleen Sussman, I'm going to call her out. We drove up together, and we were remembering where everything was. And I can tell you, we easily found the Rathskeller. We found where we spent way too much time. We found my off-campus apartment, both of them. We found Boscov's, where we used to shop quite a bit, and we could not find the university. That tells you something about some of the time that we spent. We found, my friend Kathy even remembered this terrific bar restaurant that we used to go to. She remembers the fried ice cream, and we found that as well. And it's not even open anymore, but we found that and literally couldn't find the university. So I hope to make my way back there tomorrow morning. So I'm just thrilled actually to be back. It really felt like home, and I will tell you that it was such an interesting experience for me to be here at Binghamton, because if you look at my life story, which many of you probably don't know, when I was born, I was sort of accompanied by this set of statistics that would seem to predict that I would never make it out of the projects in the South Bronx. I would most likely end up living a burdened life of poverty and endless struggle, able only to make unseemly choices and perhaps even a violent end. And after all, the statistics certainly pointed me in that direction. However, I think, and I'm often asked this, how did you make it out of the hood type question. And I think I had three things. I was lucky enough to have the God-given gift of a sharp mind and really a relentless drive to push ahead. I had two parents, and that fact alone was critical, I think. But these two people sacrificed themselves to me constantly. To this day, they do that. And I had Binghamton. Before you can understand, I think, how important that one fact is, let me tell you a bit about myself that you can't find on Google. When I was 4 years old, I was able to read the New York Times. And I would read it to my grandmother, who would invite the entire neighborhood, believe it or not, to observe this phenomenon. I mean, how many 4-year-olds in the South Bronx could read, let alone the New York Times, which is something that my father thought was important for me to read. And I still read it every morning, actually. But I was a bit of a sideshow, a distraction in the otherwise very difficult and encumbered life within the projects. I was sort of in the land of misfit toys. That's kind of how I felt. I mean, if you would imagine, I went to high school at 12, because I skipped a grade and got advanced further. And I ended up at Binghamton at 16. Yeah. So life wasn't easy for me, for any of us really. But I remember a particular event, and I have a very good memory of my life when I was 3 and 4 and 5, which apparently is a little unusual. But this event, it was a tragedy, changed everything for me, and it changed it for my family as well. At the age of 5, I recall sitting on the bathroom floor of an apartment in the Bronx, watching my uncle with blood all around him after he had been stabbed by a jealous boyfriend. And I remember sort of sitting on the bathroom. I remember on the bathroom floor. I remember what it looked like and what it felt like. It's sort of this tacky, gooey blood. And I remember thinking, I won't ever be this person. I literally remember thinking that. I won't ever be this person. And his life nearly ended that day, but he did survive. But he died years later from AIDS. What did not survive, though, at that time was the mindset that my family would live out their days in this depressing and dream-crushing place. I recently just spoke to my parents about it, and they both said, "You remember that?" I said, like it was yesterday. And I made the decision then that it wouldn't be my life. I'm the daughter of a multiracial marriage, a marriage that wasn't planned. My mother got pregnant in high school. My father, who dreamed of becoming a doctor, is African American. My mother is Puerto Rican and Jewish. I know, unusual. She's sort of this blonde enigma with a fire and drive, much like my own. And in the days after that, and I should say my mother had to drop out of school to have me and got her GED. And my father couldn't go to medical school, couldn't go to college. He had to get a job to support us. And instead of medicine, he decided to pursue a technical path. He became a computer analyst, which actually has done quite well. But after that one incident, my mother said, she decided we had to get out. We had to do better, we had to get out. And she went back to school. She now has a master's degree. It took her about 15 years to get that because she went part-time and she was trying to scrape together the money. But she said she realized education was our way out. And in particular, if you have this smart little idiot savant living with you, this is her way out. So my mother says that I became the driving force for the family, just sort of for trying to uplift our family. And initially that meant getting out of the South Bronx, the boogie down Bronx. And so what my mother did, we moved into Stuyvesant Town in Manhattan. I don't know if many of you know that place, yes. But at that time, my mother looks very white, my father looks very black, and he couldn't show up to the interview. So she got the apartment on her own and went for the interview. Imagine everyone's surprise when we all showed up. And we did all show up. So it was sort of a change for me, a difference for me. And although it was difficult every week, I remember that, and we barely scraped by, they made sure I had the best education they could provide. I went to Catholic schools, I went to a prep academy, and I worked really, really hard. And my father always said, you're so smart. You can go to any school. So I applied to the top 20 schools. I didn't have a nickel, really. We really didn't. And it had been my dream at the time to attend one of the Ivies. And my guidance counselors kept on telling me, you're gonna get in, you're gonna get in. I had the grades, I had the desire, I had the drive, and I got into a few of them. I had no money, zero. And as hard as we tried to imagine it and to dream and to aspire it, that we knew there was no way for us to afford it. I needed major financial help to attend any college, let alone a good one. And on a whim, I applied to Binghamton because it was also hard to get into Binghamton. I'm sure, I hear it's extremely hard to get into now as well. And I applied to Binghamton. And what was fascinating to me was I wrote a lot of letters, and Binghamton offered me a full ride through the Educational Opportunity Program. I was stunned. And I said to and my father, of course, says, that's right. They should pay you to go to college. And he said that about law school too, which is what happened. But he's like, that's right, you should go to Binghamton. Now, remember, I'm this poor kid who's now living in Manhattan, kind of barely scraping by. We weren't going on any college tours. I mean, how were we really gonna get there? We kind of had an old jalopy. It just wasn't gonna happen. My father walked to work every day. I walked to school every day. I walked about 3 miles to go to school every day. It just is what we did. And so I came to Binghamton sight unseen. Yeah, sight unseen. 16 years old, on a bus, Greyhound bus with my parents. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is really nice. I lived in college in the woods. Yes, I lived in college in the woods. And I would say that when we were on our way, I saw cows for the first time. Cows for the first time. And I was shocked. I mean, I'm you know, by nature eager and curious, but I just couldn't believe that I was going to a school where I would see cows on the way up. And I thought, I made the most horrible mistake. I just can't believe that I'm here. But what was just so incredible was that it wasn't just the different landscape that surprised me. I was exposed to an entire environment that I don't think I would have ever been exposed to anywhere else. Not the IVs, not working. And I met these fascinating people. I met a culture and a community that offered me this slice of life where people worked their way through school, where people expressed themselves differently, openly, and people really cared about each other. And that was so different for me. They cared about your success. I often tell people when I'm at CNN, a lot of folks will say, you know, oh, you know, who are all these people? I'm like, oh, they're my college friends. They're all shocked. Like, I haven't spoken to anybody I went to college with for years. I mean, my best friend, she's the godmother of my children. We were in each other's weddings. We've been through everything together. My other best friend, Binghamton, Reggie Canal, Binghamton, Robert Gonzalez, who was supposed to be with us today, but through his back out at work, which I said, you are really getting old, Robert Gonzalez, so he couldn't be here. Kathleen Sussman. I mean, literally, all of my closest circle of friends came from Binghamton. And I know that that's unusual. I think, though, other than getting this Binghamton family, the greatest gift that I received at Binghamton, even beyond the full ride scholarship, which is just enormous, I wouldn't be here today if not for Binghamton and that scholarship, was the personal care and support I got from faculty and staff. Unlike any I had gotten before from the EOP office. Louis Del Valle, I hope some of you had the opportunity to meet him. He guided me in a way that I think is almost unheard of. He invited me to his house. I would eat dinner with him. And there was a turning point in my career. I wanted to be a doctor initially because my father wanted to be a doctor and he couldn't go, and I carry around that kid guilt, right? He gave up everything for me. And I'd studied biology as a bio major, and I was horrible. I mean, I would study and study and study and study and study, and if I got a B, I was lucky. And I thought, I'm not gonna get into medical school with this. This is ridiculous. And I remember going into Louis' office, really crying, saying, I made a mistake. I'm in my junior year. I don't want to take the MCATs. He said, what do you like? I said, I like arguing with people. From the Bronx. I like arguing, yeah. I like arguing with people. I like writing. I like reading. I'm still a voracious reader. It drives my husband crazy, but literally I read about 5 books at the same time. And something's not interesting me, I move to the next one. And I used to have all these books on our end table, and it used to drive him crazy. So now I just download them on a Kindle, so he doesn't know what I'm doing. But I'm really still doing, don't tell him, Kathy, I'm still doing the same thing that I've always done. And I said, I love to read, I love to write. And he said, then you should switch majors. I said, but then I won't graduate on time. And I've never failed at anything. And he said, failing? Are you kidding me? He said, you're finding yourself. You're finding your authentic self. And Binghamton is here to help you do that. And I never forget that. He said, no one can do you the way you can do you. And if you need to switch majors to be happy, then you need to do that. I said, but I don't have any money. And he said, we will still be here for you. EOP paid for a 5th year for me here to allow me to somehow find myself. And indeed I did, right? And I remember that now on television as well, because anyone that sees me arguing with my good friend, not really, Mark Garagos, I'm my authentic self. I'm not afraid to give an opinion. And I learned that, how to do that here. Truly I did. But the Binghamton family was forgiving and supportive all the way. They wanted me to succeed as much as I did, maybe in retrospect even more. And I received a level of nurturing and guidance that was absolutely critical to a 16-year-old college student. When I had that conversation with Louis, I was 19. Can you imagine? So the Binghamton culture and family became my family. My friends became my family. My culture, filling my years with just the right blend of support and challenge. And I realized that, and I hope that the culture is still the same, and I believe after meeting with President Stenger and John Koch and Randall from EOP, I know that it's the same. It's really about encouraging students to seek success through exploration and personal stretching. And it's not so much about the pressure to achieve, although that is here, but guidance to explore and discover. And I had so many fantastic experiences. I think Brian, someone named Brian was here accepting an award. Where's Brian? And Tao. I was Tao's campus queen. Yes, I was. It was one of my more interesting experiences. And oftentimes people ask me, I can't believe you would be in a beauty pageant. And that is true, because I hold some disdain for that. My father and my mother always said, you know, it's about what's in here, not what's out here. And I wasn't allowed to wear makeup or comb my hair or, you know, wear anything tight. It was about what was going on in here. So I remember I did it because Tao was actually giving a trip to the Bahamas. And I had never been basically anywhere.
They actually gave that to you?
Yes, yes, and I cashed in, I actually went. True story, right? It's true, yeah. Anyway, my parents actually, and I believe I was the first woman of color to win that pageant, and the next year there were so many others. And I remember one of the new students saying to me that, I was in the paper, one of the new students that joined the pageant afterwards said that she saw me in the paper and she thought, if she could do it, I could do it. So that was one of my very interesting experiences here. So while the quiet but consistent encouragement and support at Binghamton was so critical for me, ultimately I think it all boils down to the level of education afforded by any university. And this university is, I think, heads and shoulders above the rest. I can't begin to tell you, when I speak, and I get invited to speak often, and I you know, debate people on CNN, the most often asked question I get is, you went to Harvard, right? Psh, I went to Binghamton. And I'm so proud, and I'm so proud to say that. And I will tell you, apparently the secret of Binghamton's prestige is out, right? I talked with President Stenger, and he told me it's really virtually impossible to get in here now. And it's always used the tagline of this public Ivy League university, I think, to sort of connote the excellence. And I think, of course, because of the reputation, Binghamton is the first choice of so many people like me. And I didn't even know that when I first walked on the campus grounds. I didn't know that I would be given the same, and in my view now, perhaps even better quality of education that I could have gotten in any other school. I didn't know that Binghamton would shape my future in the ways that it has. I didn't know Binghamton would provide me the type of educational foundation on which I could pursue any professional dream that I could imagine. I didn't know then that the sight of those cows in such a foreign, rural setting, completely outside of my experience, would herald the provision of a rock-solid platform for my future. So like I said, I had three things that brought me where I am today: a passion and a drive to explore and reach high, two parents who have committed everything they had to my future, and Binghamton. And I want to also say that today is my grandmother's birthday. She passed away 2 years ago. But as the first college graduate, I'll never forget, she didn't speak much English, but as I went off on the Greyhound bus, she said, "Let me tell you something." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "When you go to Binghamton, you represent me. Don't embarrass me, Asuncion. Don't embarrass me." And I hope that she's looking down on me, and I hope that I didn't embarrass her. So am I grateful for Binghamton? You bet I am. And I'm so proud to be part of the Bearcat family. Thank you.